Alright, we're going to go over how to make one of these charging leads. So with the new X2 multi-charger, it comes with a lead like this, and basically looks like that. So it doesn't have an end on it. They expect you to add your own ends. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use the XT60 connectors as my standard connector, especially for my aircraft. And so you can see I've made up this one already. So I'm going to go over how to make that real quick, showing how to solder it and everything. So first thing is, we want to make sure we solder the correct end onto the cable. So this is the correct end. We want the female end on the charging cable. Of course, this plugs into your charger. So to help me keep that organized, I've put blue marks on the end that I need to solder to. You can see that I just did that with a Sharpie. Also, to help dissipate heat, I'm going to go ahead and plug this other end in to help dissipate that heat coming off there when I solder. So also you'll notice on the, I don't know if you can see that, there's a positive and a negative. You want to of course make sure that black is negative and red is positive when you solder it. So next step is to go ahead and prepare our wires for being soldered. Okay, I have my helping hand set up here. It's just a weighted base with alligator clips on it. It has a magnifying glass in here. This is really handy for holding the wire. What we're going to do is we're going to clean our soldering tip. I'm using a Weller WES51 soldering iron, and we're going to just touch that wire to the soldering iron, then touch the solder to the wire, and it will melt. Now we might have to put a little bit of solder on there to get it to transfer heat. There we go. Flow a little solder on there. Now these wires were already tinned from the factory with solder, but I'm going to add a little bit more. We want to add plenty of solder on this connector joint so it's nice and strong. So there we go, that's all done. Now the next thing we need to talk about is heat shrink tubing. So I'm going to use actually 5 pieces of heat shrink tubing on this part because I want it to be nice and strong and supported. So I have 2 6mm pieces of heat shrink cut 15mm long. I have 1 20mm piece cut 20mm long, and then 2 10mm pieces cut 10mm long. So let's go ahead and put on the first piece here. This piece is going to go on and support in the center, just like so. And we can just leave that on there for now. It doesn't have to be tight. Then we'll go ahead and solder the positive lead first. So let's put that small piece of heat shrink on the red wire. And there we go. You want to keep that away from the heat so it doesn't shrink on you as you're soldering. Alright, let's get set up to solder. Alright, sorry if there's a little bit of noise. The HVAC's running down here in the Project King workshop. Let's look at what we're doing here now. So I've got the plug on there. I'm going to put a little dab of flux on there. Flux just helps clean the surface as it heats and makes a better solder joint. You want to make sure you clean that flux off as much as you can. It's a little bit of a kind of a nasty stuff. So we've got the wire set up with our helping hands. It's tinned. Here we go. Let's get going. So we have our soldering iron. We're gonna clean the tip. And I use one of these little brass cleaners. It's pretty nice. It gets that nice and shiny. See that? That's what you want. You don't want any dirt on your soldering tip. Alright, we're going to heat that area. And I've got this soldering iron cranked up pretty well. This is a nice soldering iron. We're just going to flood that in there with solder. It's a little tricky for me to do because I'm doing it with the camera in my face, so you don't want to use a ton, but you definitely want to have plenty in there. There it goes. You can see it turn shiny. And there, let it cool off. It's that easy. You really have to practice with solder. It's kind of an art a little bit. You know, it's all about having the right temperature. So give yourself some patience with it and practice. Get some wire and just practice soldering. That's the best way to do it. It's kind of like welding. So there we go. We've got that piece done. And notice I've got this connector in a vise. That really helps hold it and securely places it in front of me. You can see the solder joint's nice and shiny, which is what we want, indicating a good joint. We don't want that to be a dull color. That is rock solid. So now that we have that in place, we're going to slide this heat shrink tubing over it and slide that into the hole. Make sure you get that heat shrink tubing into the hole of the connector. See, there's a recessed hole. That will ensure your connector can't get shorted. Alright, so let's get the heat gun. Alright, it's time to heat the heat shrink. So always use a heat gun. Don't use a lighter or a torch or whatever. I don't really go for that. You know, you need to use the right tool for the right job. So the heat gun really works well, but you don't want to overheat it. This is actually a very hot heat gun. It'll take paint off. So just lightly do it. Kind of keep your fingers there to gauge the heat. And there you go. It's just that easy. Now let's go ahead and set up our support piece, the support piece of heat shrink in the center. And go ahead and heat that. There you go. Looks good. That'll help secure that. Alright. Now, I'm going to go ahead and solder the other one. And then I'll come back and show you the wrap-up of the connector. Okay, it's almost done. Just have our large piece of heat shrink on there to kind of tie everything together. Let's get that going. Now this won't shrink down perfectly because it's so big, but it does a pretty good job. And it gives it a finished look. And there we go. So we have our two leads. And then of course they plug into, let's get the camera over here. Too much stuff in the way. Of course they plug into the new charger. So there's our lead we just made. Notice I can just plug it in like that. There we go. Now what's cool about this charger is I can charge a LiPo battery, and I can also charge something like a Traxxas battery, lithium, or nickel metal hydride battery. So it can do them at the same time with different types of battery, different type of battery. So that's pretty awesome. So this is, I wanted to show you this. This is a purchased lead for a Traxxas battery connector. This will be used on the Summit that you've probably seen in my other videos. And so if you wanted to go this route and you don't want to have to solder your own connectors, you can always order some of these. I ordered these for like $3 or $4 a piece when I placed an order for the charger. So that's another way to do it. And of course you have your balance board here. So